Hello lovelies, welcome to my channel, Roseanne Can. Today we're going to start with some of the very basics of cooking. I want you to get comfortable with cooking and allow it to be something that you can express yourself doing and it's not fearful in any way because it is so basic. We're going to talk about sauteing vegetables. We saute vegetables to get them a start on cooking. It brings out the sweetness in them and we can use them in soups or stews or any kind of a casserole. They work very well. I'm going to do the three basic vegetables, the aromatics, an onion, a carrot, and celery. In Italy, it's called the sofrito. In France, it's called a mirepoix. It's just the basics of your aromatics. You can do sweet pepper if you like. Some people put garlic in it. Sometimes in Italy, they'll put pancetta, which is similar to our bacon in there. But this is the very basics. So all my vegetables have been washed, not the onion, and I've dried them because we want everything you're going to saute, you want it to be dry as it can be, or else you're just going to be steaming it. You're not going to be sauteing it. You want to get a brown crisp on it. I have a bowl that I use for scraps. In this case, when you're doing these vegetables, save the scraps. Don't throw them away. This part of the celery that I'm going to cut off, both ends, I'm going to save them. I save them in the freezer in a bag that says vegetable scraps, and I use it when I'm making soups. When I cut the ends off of the carrot, I do the same thing. I do the same thing with the peel of the onion because you're going to strain it when you use it in soup or when you use it in broth. You can also use the vegetables in broth. To start the onion, I'm going to cut one end off, and then I'm going to cut it in half. I'm probably going to cry doing this. I'm not sad. It's just that way. And I'm going to peel it. And again, I'm going to keep the peeling in that outer layer in my scrap bowl. Generally, when you're making a sofrito or any kind of sauteed vegetables for your casseroles or stews, in general, it's 2 parts onion to 1 part celery or 1 part carrot. If you like more, do more. The whole purpose of cooking is to express yourself. To cut this onion, I'm first going to cut slits down it. And then I'm going to cut a couple horizontal ones while I'm pinching the sides to hold it together some. And then I'm going to go straight down. And put the ends in that bowl over there that I'm going to save for another time. And right now my eyes are watering. We're going to do the same thing with the other one. You see how I'm cutting it? And then a slice this way. And I'm holding the sides together and keeping my fingers curled in. And when I get to the end, since I'm saving it anyway, I'm just going to throw it in that bowl. Woo, my eyes are watering. Hang on one second. Okay, that was fun. I'm going to put my chopped vegetables in this bowl until we're ready. Should have done the onions last so I could see. The celery, I already cut the end off. I'm just going to cut it into strips. Again, curling my fingers back. And I can't see right now because of my eyes. I find that if I close my mouth when I cut onions, it's much better. But I was chatting with you guys, so. I'm just cutting some long strips, and then I'm just going to take the tip of my knife and leave it on the board and just chop it. I'm just rolling it, rocking it back and forth a little bit. It's never fully coming off of the cutting board. And then I have my fingers curled back, and I'm walking them backwards, not letting the knife get too close. When you get to a small part of it, I set it aside. Rocking that knife. And then I'm going to hold it real carefully with my fingers curled back and get the last piece of that celery. have the carrot. My eyes are still watering. I'm going to cut down the center, which never really ends up being the center. So I have a flat spot to lay it down. And then I'm going to cut a couple long strips. Whew, can't see. Always keeping my hands out of the way. Onions, they get me. Doing the same thing. I'm squeezing all my little strips together and just rocking that knife. Keeping my fingers curled back, walking my fingers back while I'm cutting. Then when I get done, if I see any pieces that are too large, I can always give it a chop just by holding this part down with my palm and just rocking that knife some more. And then I can scrape them back into the pile and do the same thing going the other direction, just to get some of those bigger pieces because I couldn't see. All right, so that's my carrots. That is in what in France would be called a mirepoix, sofrito in Italy. Sometimes in France they add tomato paste to theirs. In Spain, instead of using the carrots, they would use a pepper. But we are using those three. I'm going to get a pan, a skillet onto the stovetop. I'm going to turn it on medium to medium high and let it warm up before I put the oil in and we start doing the actual sauteing. I have here my non-stick skillet. I have it on the burner on medium to medium high. I can feel that it's getting warm. I'm letting it heat up because if we put the food in the pan when the oil and the pan are cold, the vegetables will just absorb the oil and they will get greasy, and that's not what we want. So it's fairly hot. I'm going to drizzle just a small amount of olive oil in. You don't need very much. I'm going to give it just a second so that it can get hot. It should only take a second because the pan was already preheated. You can always drop a drop of water in to see if it sizzles. Let's see. I heard a sizzle when I splashed some water, so we're good. I'm going to add my vegetables. They're just right here in the bowl where we put them. Can you hear that sizzle? It's a good sound. We're just going to spread them in the pan so they all can absorb a little bit of the oil and they all can come in contact with the heat. Got a really big old chunk of onion in here. I don't like him. I'm going to take him out and put him in that scrap bucket. He can get used in a soup. So the time of how long you're going to saute depends on what you're doing with it. If you're going to use it in something that cooks really quick, like a stir fry or something that's really fast, you want to saute them not too much because you want them to retain their crispness. If you're going to put them, I'm actually going to make some red sauce for pasta today. And so these are going to get cooked way down fairly well. In fact, once they get a good sear on them, I'm going to turn it down and leave them for about 5 or 8 minutes because I want them to cook pretty thoroughly. When I make my sauce, I don't want to feel the chunks of onion or celery or carrot. I don't want to bite into something crispy in my sauce. So I'm going to cook these a little more. So you have to think about what you're using it for. If you're going to cook it in soups, again, is the soup going to simmer for a really long time? Then they can be a little crisper when you put them in if you want them to retain their structure. Do you want them to dissolve sort of and just leave their flavor and their sweetness, or do you want them to be something that people notice? That's totally up to you. These are sizzling pretty well, so I'm going to turn them down to medium. And they're going to sit here for a little bit, and every couple of minutes, I'm just going to give them a little bit of a toss. You don't want to stir them too much because you want them to come in contact with that heat and get some good cooking on them. So we'll come back in a couple minutes and check and see how these are doing. These are our vegetables that are sauteing. They've been here for about 5 minutes. And I'm going to add salt and pepper now. I don't add salt when I first put them in because when you add salt to vegetables, they release their juices, and you want them to retain their juices and not steam. We want them to get cooked in. So I'm going to add some salt. I'm hand holding my camera right now, my phone, which is why it's moving around, sorry. A little bit of salt and pepper. And if you were using this in a stew or a soup, it would be done right now. But I'm going to let mine cook because I'm going to put them in a red sauce and I want them to be invisible. But as far as you guys are as far as y'all are concerned, you have sauteed some vegetables and I'm sure you did a great job. That's the very basics of vegetable sauteing. If you got anything out of this video, please like it for me. If you would like to subscribe, that would be grand. We're going to do a lot of other very basic cooking skills soon because I really want you to be comfortable with cooking and not freak out when you see words that sound unusual or that sound complicated, because for the most part it's really not. And cooking is about expressing yourself, showing your love, and cooking what you like. If you don't like one, if you're not big on onions, leave some out, put less in. Cook them more. When you cook an onion, it becomes sweet and unctuous. It's not bitter at all. Give things a try and experiment. Thanks for watching Roseanne Can. I will see you next time.